Monterey Peninsula, an appealing part of Central California, has an array of sights to see, including Cannery Row. This Pacific coastline, famously painted into American literature by John Steinbeck, is for us enhanced by the WeatherTech Raceway Laguna, Seca, and Ferrari racing days. The second round of the Ferrari Challenge North America embraced this undulating racing circuit, widely anticipated by the fans and the teams. The drivers will deliver when they take to the tarmac, and at the end of the weekend, those that are victorious will have earned their accolades. Forza Ferrari. Here we go, Ferrari Challenge at Laguna Seca. It is our Coppa Shell drivers for their race one of this second round in our 2024 calendar. The mix of Shell and Shell Am drivers, as you can see, lining up, ready to go out there for their reconnaissance laps, and big grid of cars that we have as well. It's an awesome calendar for 2024. We kicked it all off in Texas. Here we are in California. Next, we go and support Formula One in Montreal. Then it's Watkins Glen, then Sonoma, then the Brickyard, Indianapolis Motor Speedway, before round 7, the final, the Finale Mondiale at Imola in Tuscany in Italy, right in the middle of October. That's the way the calendar looks for 2024, and a brilliant calendar it is as well. Here in Laguna Seca, the sun always shines. Apparently. Not quite so today, but it's warmed up a bit. This extraordinary circuit then, which is described as very much old school, contains 11 turns, 7 left, 4 right, about 3.6 kilometers, and it winds its way through the undulating California landscape. And there you can see the 166 car ready to go out there of Chuck Vittel. Beautiful looking car, and the care that the drivers take in the design of their cars is, well, truly inspiring. Utter works of art. Really, really beautiful. So, as I was mentioning, the weather conditions, well, not as Californian as we would like. Track temperature, 21 degrees. The air temperature, relative, possibly chilly at 14. 78% humidity, just a little flutter of 11 kilometers per hour of wind around. And that's the way it looks then, and the way it's going to stay, I would think, for the 30 minutes plus 1 lap duration that we have for our Coppa Shell and Coppa Shell Am race. Drivers went out qualifying earlier on today in conditions that were damp and drizzly, to be honest. And the conditions that the track greets them with now, altogether different to that upon which they had to qualify as they climb uphill there, as you can see. And the track is bone dry, and Jerry Walters was one of the drivers that found the grip available during qualifying was not quite where she would have liked it to be. Do not discount the car covered in bubbles, because both she and the car are an awesome driver-car combo. So Jerry could do very well today. She is qualified P4 within class. That's P12 overall for the Ferrari of Vancouver driver. Up next then, we look at the car of Jeffrey Nunberg, the 141 car now. Jeff, who was on the podium in race 1 in COTA, taking a P3. He'll be hoping for good things, although he's another driver that has qualified arguably out of position. In position, as always, adding so much insight to our broadcast is Shay Adam. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Dave, and welcome back to WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca. We are here, but this time the conditions are very different than when we were here just an hour ago for a different race for Trofeo Pirelli. It's now warming up ever so slightly. The severe coldness that was in the air has gone away. The bit of moisture has also gone away, and these are very different conditions from what we had this morning for qualifying. Speaking of this morning in qualifying, it was quite the performance from our pole sitter, Eric Marsden, in car number 126 for Ferrari of Beverly Hills. Still waiting for him to make his way back around. He did a phenomenal job, took the pole position by 1.3 seconds over the rest of the field, his first pole position. And I want to make sure I get this right. Hello to Amy, his wife, Madeline, Gwendolyn, Tristan, and Declan, his family, watching in at home. So for Eric, a man who first bought his first Ferrari in 2012, very exciting day. He got a podium at Circuit of the Americas, looking to follow that up with a potential, dare I even say it, first race win. Alongside him, Rob McWilliams. Rob is in car number 123. He's got one of the best liveries in the paddock and one of the favorite fire suits as well. Rob is with a front row start, which is where he ended the second race at Circuit of the Americas to begin the season. Cars still pulling into place, but I want to point out there is one car missing from the grid. This is a big story, Dave, because Cyril Choksi, after a crash in qualifying, not starting today's race, he comes in as their championship leader.
Very good point that you make, Shay. Yes, Cyril Choksi out in qualifying and therefore not taking his place on the grid. Let me echo the congratulations to Eric Marston. I had the pleasure of enjoying coffee with Eric and Amy, his wife, last year, and delighted that Eric has taken his pole position. And yes, Shay, of course, he'll be hoping to convert that into the race win as well. So Eric Marston and Robert McWilliams side by side in Shell drivers. For Shell Am drivers, Roger Monteforte and Brian Waltersdorf. They go from effectively the front row of the grid for Shell Am drivers. The Shell drivers have yellow strip across the top of the windscreen. The Shell Am drivers a black strip across the top of the windscreen. That's how you can easily identify which category our Ferrari Challenge drivers are racing in these truly wonderful 296 Challenge cars, and a big grid of cars that will be taking to the track. But disappointed to hear that Cyril Choksi will not be taking his place on the grid due to an off in qualifying. That's how tricky the conditions were when the drivers were qualifying fairly early on this morning, when the weather conditions were less than favourable, it has to be said. It was just drizzly and dank, to be honest with you, and early morning mist around as well. It was really challenging for them, but there, those drivers lining up ready to go. Then the race duration for 2024 is 30 minutes plus 1 lap for our mix of Shell and Shell Am drivers here in Laguna Seca. And alongside me is Tony Verlander. Tony, forgive me for being somewhat tardy in introducing you, but I have a director in my ear telling me what to do, which is just as well, really, because without that guidance, I wouldn't know where I'd be. But I'm delighted you're alongside me.
Yeah, thanks, Dave. No worries. We are ready for this race one of Coppa Shell. Interesting. Eric Marston with his pole position. Nice to see him performing well, but for sure an excited pole sitter heading to that turn 1, turn 2, and let's see how he handles the formation lap and then the actual start.
We have seen, because you go through that turn 1 kink, and it is just a kink. It's labelled as a turn, but it is a kink, really, taken full chat flat before, I assume, Tony, that you're hard on the brakes for turn number 2, which is a bit of a hairpin, isn't it?
Yeah, but that kink actually is the one that makes everything a bit more difficult. It's the one that creates upset the cars a bit, breaking into turn 2. So over the years we've seen already contacts before we even head to turn 2, which is actually the tighter one, the Andretti hairpin. So kink, you need to be well aware where you place your race car. As you mentioned, you have cold tires, so no sudden movements with the steering wheel. So start itself normally is the most exciting part for the drivers. Restarts as well during the race, but the actual start where everybody is side by side and all the cars are heading together towards turn 1, or in this occasion the turn 2, where normally the action really happens.
This circuit, you've said previously, and I completely agree with you, is very old school, and we'll talk about that in just a moment, because let's go back down to the grid now, and Shay Adam with those all-important words for us.
Drivers, start your Ferrari engines.
As always, delivered with aplomb. And drivers do fire up their engines. As I was saying, very old school, Tony, this circuit, where you have to be millimetrically perfect around the turns, because if you're not millimetrically perfect and you just dip one wheel off the tarmac or off the painted lines or off the curbs, you're into some fairly loose stuff, which will more than unsettle the car.
Yeah, Laguna Seca has character like many other tracks in North America, which means that the barriers are close, not a lot of margin for errors, but at the same time it gives a great feeling when you almost outdid the performance of yourself, or the race car had a perfect lap, improved your performance. Not a real heartbreaking zones apart from turn 2, needs a good flow, a rolling speed into the corners. The minimum speed at the apex needs to be high, and you need to trust the car. Coming down from the corkscrew, you go like, I did the corner, but it's still a challenging one to go downhill from that corkscrew. And turn 9 is one of my favorite corners, actually, where you really can feel the car squeezing down to the ground, and you battle with the steering wheel, and the timing of the brake and the throttle is really important. With the wrong timing, you can create or understeer or oversteer, and it's very difficult to fix setup-wise. You need to have the right movements with the hands, but also with your feet.
That's why we love having you alongside us, giving it from a driver's eye perspective. Right, hold on to your hats, because we're about to go Ferrari Challenge Coppa Shell Racing. In time-honoured tradition, let's bring you the grid in full then across the mix of Shell and Shell Am drivers for this race 1 of round 2 here in Laguna Seca. The front row of the grid, many congratulations. Eric Marston, pole position, alongside him Robert McWilliams. To the second row, Osvaldo Gallo and Jan Bernier, 2 good qualies then. From those gentlemen, they go from row 2. On row 3, we find Mitchell Green and Chuck Whittle, danger men potentially from P5 and P6. On row 4, Lisa Clark and John Fisker. As we head towards row 5, where we find P9 for Roger Monteforte and Brian Waltersdorf alongside the best of the AM drivers. Then it's Dana Goodwin and Jerry Walters. They will be going from P11 and P12. On to the 7th row right now, where we find David Williams and Paul Lynn. They are P13 and P14 respectively. To row 8 right now, and P15 for Helen Shu, and Al Heggie goes from P16. To the 9th row, which means P17 for Roy Carroll and P18 for Steve Check, 2 drivers that will want to cut through the pack, that's for sure. And Jeffrey Nunberg starting right from the back of the pack. Expect to see him do some overtaking as well. So the scene is set for what should be a truly terrific Ferrari Challenge North America Shell and Shell Am race, as the cars now grid up in side-by-side formation, as always, led around by the Richard Mills safety car. It is a rolling start for our Ferrari Challenge drivers. We will split the screen so that you're able to see the cars as they approach the lighting gantry and the green flag, and also as you can see them round that final turn. As if by magic, those pictures appear upon our screen. And what a great sight it is. The paddock to your right-hand side then. And it's the responsibility of Marston and McWilliams to control the pace of the rolling start. And they round up the final turn here at Laguna Seca. The engine note will rise, and they will roar towards the gantry, and the green flag flies right now. Let's go racing. Ferrari Challenge Coppa Shell and Eric Marston pole position. He's got the gun seat going into turn number 2. They make their way through turn 1 successfully, and through turn number 1 Eric Marston goes, converting that pole position into P1 right at the start of the race. All the cars coming through there unscathed, which is always good to see. And then you begin to rise uphill now at Laguna Seca, and use all of the immense power that these wonderful 296 Challenge cars afford our drivers. So here then, into this left-hander. And already the first group of cars beginning to break away from the rest of the pack then as they head uphill and through one more turn before a real steep climb now, heading towards that corkscrew turn, which really is something to behold. So Eric Marston appearing to have everything completely under control. Bear in mind, it takes a good lap or so to get these tyres really up to temperature. And Jan Bernier, who has put himself ahead of Osvaldo Gallo, Jan Bernier up to P3. Eric Marston leading the way for the Shell drivers. It's Roger Monteforte, Brian Watersdorf and Dana Goodwin then for the Shell AM drivers. So it's just a little glimpse of sunshine, perhaps. Careful what you say, Dave. Begins to break through the heavy cloud here at Laguna Seca. The first lap is put in the book with Talal Sher leading. Where it's Roger Monteforte from Brian Watersdorf and Paul Lynn, and the Talal Sher car appeared in the graphics not where we expected it to just for a moment, and it is as we were with Marston, McWilliams and Jan Bernier. P1, 2 and 3 for our Shell drivers, and for our Shell AM drivers it's Roger Monteforte from Brian Watersdorf and Paul Lynn doing a very good job in terms of driving up some places there ahead of Dana Goodwin. So uphill once again, and well, for my money, Tony Verlander, Eric Marston nailed the start absolutely perfectly, pinpoint accurate, and now he's beginning to stretch his legs.
Yeah, one of the cleanest race starts I ever seen. I mean, he held the group together very nicely, accelerated at the green flag, and everything went really smooth. There was nobody to challenge him into turn 2, and now once everything is getting up to temperature, the tires are starting to work better. He's really pulling away now, and I think this lap he's really setting the pace for others, and great start for the race overall.
Talking to him after qualifying as I was, Tony, he was saying that he actually felt that he had an even quicker lap in him. The track was evolving, and he felt he was evolving, and the car too. And even though he got pole position, he felt there was even more that he could have brought, as we see an overtake here, potentially going into turn number 1. But if you put yourself in that inside position, providing you can scrub the speed, you can indeed make it work. And the inside of one becomes the outside of another, though. So this battle royale that is going on here is proving just too much for the car of Mitchell Green. I think it was Mitchell Green that he was side by side and they were battling together. Now, every other driver avoiding, one hopes, and let's see if can engage reverse and get it pointing back in the right direction again. But Eric Marston, who's built a gap of some 1.6 seconds over McWilliams right now, is doing a very good job right at the front of this race. Let's take a look at this in replay, Tony, to see how this evolved. They were side by side through the kink. Now, as I mentioned, the inside line becomes the outside line for the next turn, and going for a classic switchback here. Ooh, very nearly contact between the two of them. And that looked like the back end of the car just catching out on the dust.
Yeah, he just misjudged where he was at the track, and he placed the left-hand side wheels on the dirt over the curb, like we mentioned already before this start, but also the other start, meaning that you need to be really careful at this track, and that dropping the wheel over the curb got him, and he ended up spinning. Luckily, nobody hit him and were able to avoid the spinning car.
Well, it was Mitchell Green, unfortunately, dropping down the order now as we watch the other cars here, including Jan Bernier, Ferrari of Seattle, who's got Osvaldo Gallo for company. Now, Jan Bernier did usurp earlier on. Is he going to be able to hold on to that place? We will see. It's Marston from McWilliams from Bernier. Bernier occupying the provisional final podium place for our Shell drivers. For the AM drivers, it's Roger Monteforte from Brian Watersdorf and Paul Lynn, then the top 3 at the moment. And for my money, Eric Marston doing everything he needs to, up to 2.376 seconds of a margin. Shea Adam.
You guys talked about the difference in performance we're seeing from Eric Marsden. Nothing like a little bit of added inspiration. He is working with coach Alessandro Balzan, a multi-time champion for Ferrari, who has taken many people through Ferrari Challenge to championships in their own right. Most recently, Matt Krzyzewski, our champion from last year, who he's currently driving with in the Michelin Le Mans Cup. And guess what, guys? They're leading that championship by quite some time. But I digress. We've got a situation with Eric Marsden where Balzan said to him before the race, all right, you're going to win this, or else you're going to do all of my laundry tonight. That's pretty good inspiration, and that's why Marsden's starting away from the rest of the field.
And may I just say, knowing LA Balzan as well as I do, I'm not surprised by that. But it's the first time I've heard that as a motivator, Tony Finlander. He certainly doesn't want to be getting into washing Eric's underwear.
Yeah. Let's add some more flavor. Imagine if he had Eric, if he had a proper coach, he would have had this pole position a year ago. Greetings to Alain Balzan.
Balzan is just a great guy, and I have to say, Ali himself, former, oh my goodness me, so we were waxing lyrical, forget all that, because we've got a car in the barriers there, that looks like the 193 car to me of Osvaldo Gallo, and also involved in that is the car of Mitchell Green. Now, Mitchell Green, we saw, had dropped down the order because of an earlier infraction. Unfortunately, Mitchell had just tipped the wheel into the loose stuff. So I'm pretty sure, Tony, with the state of those cars, we're going to get a safety car.
Yeah, 100% we will get a safety car. So
for Eric Marsden, that's a disaster, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a disaster, but he also had really a strong pace over the others. So first we need to clean the cars from track, see that all the drivers are okay, and then we start again getting the formation for the restart. But I don't really see that Eric has a big threat based on what we've seen so far. So now is a part where Balzan's radio comments come in play, saying that keep it calm, you had a pace, you were lapping half a second to a second quicker than the others, so keep it calm, keep the car on the racing line, and when the safety car switches off the lights, which in my opinion will take a few minutes, few laps, be ready at the restart. But right now I think Eric is doing an excellent job.
So we think it's Mitchell Green and Osvaldo Gallo that we've lost as a consequence of that, of those images that we saw. So the cars are all under the control of the safety car right now as we look at the 101 of Roger Monteforte, who of course is leading in the Shell AMs ahead of Brian Waltersdorf and Paul Lynn. They are the 1, 2, 3 in Shell AM. I remind you, the AM drivers with the black strip across the top of the windscreen, the Shell drivers with the yellow strip across the top of the windscreen. So, as you say, Tony, Alessandro Balzan will be talking to Eric Marsden, just advising him how to control this and what to do in terms of keeping calm during this full course yellow period and keeping the driver in the zone, as it were, Tony. But really, when you're under the auspices of the Richard Mills safety car, there's kind of only so much you can do, isn't there, Tony? You just, you're following that car. There's, nothing much you can do, really, is there?
Yeah, a little bit of weaving from side to side just to clean the tires. I'm not a big fan of that. I prefer keeping the car on the racing line where the track it's cleanest.
Yes.
So don't collect any pick up rubber or some other stuff outside the racing line, and then just be ready when it's time for the restart. Maybe gap the safety car just a tiny bit, do a few corners with an extra steering input just to clean those front tires, and then that's the way to go. Basically, the race car is as hot as it gets. The rotors, the brakes, everything is transmitting heat to the wheel and to the tire, so it's not a similar start than the actual race start was. So having done already 4 flying laps, the car is creating and generating heat to the tire.
And the thing is, and it was you and I have worked together for many, many years, for which you probably didn't deserve that disservice, but
I should have accelerated more, but it didn't happen, so I'm here with you.
The thing is that what I never realised is, of course, that actually the weaving from side to side will only do so much in terms of maintaining temperature into the tyres, but where the real temperature comes from is if you use the brakes, of course, through the rims, that heat dissipates onto the rubber, doesn't it? And that's the real advantage in terms of maintaining temperature.
Exactly. There's been different studies made weaving without brakes and studying how the temperature rise through telemetry and everything. And the best way is to generate temperature through the brakes, and that's the best thing. And where I got good lessons about it was in Australia when I raced in Bathurst with the V8 supercar stars. So with Wing Cup and other drivers. So there is a very tough championship and it's up to all the details. So that's where they taught me all the right process how to do it, and they actually had the facts how it's done.
It was good to see Mitchell Green out of the car, perfectly okay. I mean, the integral safety that's built into these cars is immense. Let's take a look at a replay of what went on, Tony. See, again, it's just dip to wheel into the loose. That's enough to spin that car around. And the thing is, I mentioned there the integral safety of these 296 Challenge cars. That was a huge impact, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's a big hit because the concrete wall, it doesn't move, it doesn't absorb energy at all. There's no tires, and it's coming out of turn 10. He dropped the wheel again over the exit curb. It's one thing I mentioned in the broadcast with you already, so don't drop the wheel. I mentioned in the Club GT briefing as well to the drivers that try to keep those tires, use the curb as the limit of the track, don't go over the curb. And there we saw that little sign of the wheel touching the dirt, the gravel, and the car went on spinning straight away.
And it's just a millisecond's mistake, isn't it? But that millisecond of mistake costs you so dearly. Which is why you're right, Tony. You've got to be perfect, and as you say, use the curb, but use it. That really is the limit. Don't go over it.
Yeah, exactly. The previous lap, everything was fine. I put the wheel over there, and then just that 1 inch wider line, the wheel drops, the car either bottoms to the exit curb, or just you lose the grip, and this is what happens.
Thank you, Tony. Well, to show us how to drive the Laguna Seca track in that perfect sense, we call upon young Dylan Medler to give us a track lap.
Hi guys, I'm Dylan Medler, driver number 15 of the collection Ferrari 296 Challenge car, and I'm going to take you on a lap around Laguna Seca. So here we are on the front straight of Laguna Seca. We're hitting 6th gear here, so we're going to line up on the right hand side of the track to get a good brake marker and hit the double apex into turn 2. We're going to be looking ahead, get the throttle, and now line up for turn 3 on the left-hand side, hit the brakes. We're going to hit the apex, try to get a good exit here. So now we're going to turn 4, so a pretty fast corner, pretty tricky. You got to hit it right. And now we're on the straight back to turn 5. So you look at the bridge now, and our brake marker is past the bridge. Go down 1 gear and feel the compression here and use all the track on the exit, even though it falls away. You got to hit it perfectly. And now for turn 6, you look at the bridge, brake right after that. Turn 6 is a lot of compression, as you can see. You can carry a lot of speed through there. So now we're lining up for one of my favorite corners, the corkscrew. Use all the curbing to get a straight line braking. And here we go, down to 2nd gear. Here you feel your stomach drop, you go down and then on again. So now turn 9, it's a pretty interesting corner. It's a sweeper, so you're feathering the throttle the entire time. And now we're lining up turn 10, which is pretty similar. Carry as much speed as possible. So then now you're lining up for turn 11. You want to get a good exit for the straight. Here you are, use all the track on the exit, and then you're going up the gears all the way up to 6th gear. And that is a lap around Laguna Seca.
Cheers, Dylan. Thank you very much. And that is the Osvaldo Gallo car, I believe. And both Osvaldo and Mitchell Green are out of their cars and perfectly okay. So that's really, really good to see. Having listened to that onboard lap with Dylan Medler, a UK racing driver who I've worked with on a number of occasions, called Barry Lee. He always tells me that the one of the success points of a racing driver, and we heard Dylan there talking about feathering the throttle. Barry always used to say that actually the difference between a P1 driver and a P2 driver is the art of throttle control. Agree or disagree, Tony?
Yeah, it is true, but I also add there obviously the brake, the amount of brake, how you brake, and with this new challenge car trail braking, how you can get the nose down, so sort of diving into the corner with the help of that brake. Don't overshoot the pressure and go into the ABS too much. And then obviously the throttle, depending on what kind of engine, if there is a delay related to turbo or not. And so those are the details where you fine-tune your driving. I mean, the basic driving from car to car is the same idea, but then the fine-tuning between the gears, how to work on the throttle and brakes, makes it all then more perfect. So yes, I agree with the throttle and the technique, how to use the throttle. It can change the car handling, it can change the tire life. In endurance racing, how you use the brake may change the strategy. You don't need to change the brakes. In longer races, 24-hour race, how you use throttle and how much fuel you use per lap might be one pit stop less, which can take you and your crew towards the victory. So these are all the details that come into play in different disciplines of motorsport. But yes, the basic idea, braking, turn in, apex and have a good exit is always there. But how to balance with this art of driving and the skill of driving, it comes with every individual car and the racing series you are in.
We're riding on board with Steve Czech then, and Steve Czech running in P7 in class at the moment for Ferrari of Rancho Mirage. Now, of course, the drivers are driving this wonderful new 296 car for this year. You and I saw this in its first competition here in North America in Texas a few weeks ago. And one of the points the drivers were making where, you know, there are points of difference between the 488 Challenge Evo and the 296, many points of difference. And just, you know, the 488 Challenge Evo was such a winning car across every guise that it competed in. And just when you think things can't get any better, Ferrari come up with the 296, which is, by all metrics, a wonderful racing car. But this incorporates brake-by-wire. So the drivers have said to me, Tony, that it's a completely different contemplation to previous braking. As an experienced racing driver, can you explain why? Do the brakes feel different? What does that mean, Tony?
On this technical side, I'm not super specialist. What's the difference with the brake-by-wire or normal system? What has come here into play is obviously a completely new design of the braking system, and where Ferrari is very proud of it's the capacity and the braking performance and the durability of the rotors, so the discs and the pads. So then what comes to the driving technique, what in the end ultimately is the main importance is you need to find the balance between how hard you press the pedal in the hard braking zones, because let's say you need to go 100 bar, but then 100 bar is too much.
Yes.
So then you need to be able to adapt in these situations. So it's a completely new brake system, and the feedback from drivers and the team has been very good. So Ferrari again did an excellent job. My friend Maurizio Mediani did a lot of running with the car in Italy in the various tracks from Fiorano, Vallelunga, Mugello, Monza, and he was very proud of the work they did. Obviously during the evolution and to the final concept of the car, you go through the various options, and what they have chosen with the 296 Challenge is a masterpiece.
Thank you, Tony. And right, for those of you that are watching, if you're new to the Ferrari Challenge, welcome. And here is just a small explanation of what the Ferrari Challenge is all about. The Ferrari Challenge is the preeminent and largest single-make GT series in North America. Announced in 1992 and on track in North America in 94, it is also the longest-running single-make series on the continent. The series was made for drivers who are passionate about Ferraris and enjoying them in their natural environment on the racetrack. The North American series has 5 different classes: Trofeo Pirelli, Trofeo Pirelli Am, Coppa Shell, Coppa Shell Am, and for Ferrari's previous model, the 488 Challenge Evo, which will also run in a dedicated race group. The Trofeo Pirelli classes are home for drivers with a bit more experience, while the Coppa Shell classes are for the newer drivers. The Coppa Shell Am class is specifically for drivers who just came through the renowned Corsa Pilota driver training program. The 488 Challenge Evo class is for those drivers using the previous generation race car. The series races on the most iconic and challenging circuits in North America, and in 2024 will compete at Circuit of the Americas in Austin, Laguna Seca, Montreal, Watkins Glen, Sonoma Raceway and Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Thanks to the nice man for the explanation of the Ferrari Challenge. If you're new to our series, hope you're enjoying it as much as we do. We are in a safety car situation to recover a couple of cars that have made contact with barriers. Just to give you a recap, Eric Marston leads in Coppa Shell and Roger Monteforte leads in Coppa Shell AM. And the Richard Mills safety car continuing to parade these cars around. The lights are still on the safety car, which means certainly another lap behind the safety car before the cars will be released back into race action. And Tony, it's going to be, and I often say this, it's going to be a dash for cash come the end, and the lights have gone out. Thank you, Mr. Verlander, for pointing that out to me. So now, Eric Marston and Balzan Alessandro, to his friends, will be telling Eric how to run this restart, because of course Eric controls the pace of the restart, doesn't he?
Yeah, here at here in Laguna Seca we have last corner, which is really tight, so it's very slow speed corner. So this helps the leading driver, meaning that once he gets to that main straight, he has a small advantage of the acceleration zone where he can go back on throttle, and just on a natural form of the track, the grid opens a little bit, the queue of cars will open a little bit, so this is actually a little advantage for the leading driver.
So, through the corkscrew for the final time, we hope, behind the safety car, Eric Marston then. There are rules regarding safety car restarts. You can't accelerate and then decelerate and accelerate again. Once you stay committed, once you commit, you've got to stay committed, and Eric will be well aware of that, the Ferrari of Westlake driver, as he backs all the cars up. Robert McWilliams, of course, it's down to him to try and anticipate when Eric is going to give it 100% on the loud pedal. As we go green once again, it is potentially the best opportunity for Robert McWilliams to get the advantage over Eric Marston, and he anticipated when Eric was going to go on the throttle pretty well, I would suggest. But of course, Eric has got track position. They run oh so close, and Jan Bernier trying to take advantage as well as he closes into the P1 and P2 places. But Eric Marston, for my money, controlled that restart really rather well, Tony.
Yes, he did really well. Having said that, McWilliams was really close coming out of the last turn, and he was not side by side, but he was closer than in the actual race start. But really clean start again from these Coppa Shell drivers.
Yeah, great stuff from our Coppa Shell drivers then, as Eric Marston now begins to climb. The 126 car then for Ferrari of Westlake, performing really, really well, as is the driver. And now it's the big climb heading up towards the corkscrew. And we have 7 minutes on the clock, plus 1 lap of racing still to come from these 296 cars in the Ferrari Challenge Coppa Shell. This is North America Ferrari Challenge, and we're live from the Laguna Seca here in California, with a bit of blue sky and sun for the first time of asking beginning to shine here, and it is great to see. And you can see, so we go back down the pack then, there's a bit of a battle going on for P5 with Roger Monteforte, of course, leading in terms of the Shell AM drivers, but there is a race for the results overall as well. There is Roger Monteforte then for Ferrari of Central New Jersey. He's got Brian Watersdorf for company, and Paul Lynn as well. Across the line they go, through that kink, which is a turn, and then heavy braking and diving towards the inside there, but not quite able to be done. But the battle begins to rage here. And then an out-of-class battle with Lisa Clark, who, of course, is Ferrari of Beverly Hills, is running in the Shell category this year. Shell AM champion last year, I want to remind you, and a brilliant job done by Lisa Clark. And Roger Monteforte, of course, would like to get past Lisa Clark, because that would give him the cushion of an out-of-class driver between himself and Brian Watersdorf, who is trying to get on terms with Roger Monteforte as well for the lead in the Shell AM class. So that's why Roger Monteforte is doing his devil's best to try and get by Lisa Clark, but at the moment has not been able to do that. Eric Marston continuing to lead. There is Lisa Clark then, and Roger Monteforte right behind, and then it's Brian Waltersdorf, before we find Paul Lynn, who's coming under some pressure now for Dana Goodwin for this P3 place. So Dana Goodwin then, with every anticipation of trying to get by Paul Lynn and occupy that P3 place. and they run ahead of Roy Carroll, Jeffrey Nunberg, Steve Check, and Julie Walters. Jeffrey Nunberg having done a very, very good job in terms of getting up the order and taking a look at the lap times just before the safety car. Jeffrey Nunberg posting some very fast laps in the period just before the full course yellow. 4 3/4 minutes plus 1 lap remaining. Then as they're into turn number 2, and Lisa Clark then, who is such a well-travelled racer. Tony racing not only here in North America, but also in the European season as well, of the European Series. And yeah, she was at Mugello for the opening round of the European Championship just a couple of weeks ago. And Lisa, always a welcome addition to the Ferrari Challenge Europe, as well as being a mainstay competitor here in the Ferrari Challenge North America. And that's what's really, really great about the Ferrari Challenge, in whatever category that you're racing, that the geographic regions we have of the UK, of the USA, of Japan, and also of Europe means that you can interchange, if you like, between, and you can become an entry into other regions, and yes, drivers take great store from that and enjoy that opportunity.
Yeah, I love the spirit Lisa has towards her driving and racing, but I also like the passion she has for Ferrari. So I've seen her racing around the world, and she's always with the smiles. Tony, I need some help, I'm struggling here a little bit, and then we talk through. She obviously has a great coaching crew behind her and also a great team. So she's done really, really well, and keeps doing great effort on track, and also the spirit she has towards learning new racetracks. She feels like, having raced in US for quite a while, she knows all these racetracks, and she wants to explore tracks in Europe and other parts of the world as well.
Absolutely, and she's always very, very welcome. In Europe, of course, heading off to a brand new circuit, which isn't often the case when we go to Balaton in Hungary next, which is going to be really, really something very special. Have to say that Roger Monteforte has escaped up the road in the lead of the Coppa Shell Am race, because Brian Waltersdorf, rear's view screen, has been really rather full of having to defend at the moment. So we've got Eric Marston, who's leading for Ferrari Challenge Coppa Shell. We've got Roger Monteforte, who's leading for the Am drivers. And we've got just 2.5 minutes plus 1 lap remaining. And there you can see how Roger Monteforte has broken away a bit now from Brian Waltersdorf, who, of course, is defending from Paul Lynn. Lots going on throughout the course of this race. And Robert McWilliams, well, since we've restarted, can I just make mention of the fact that Eric Marston has pulled a gap of over 3 seconds. Great driving from Eric, and great driving going on here as well through the final turn. Just if you dip your wheel, oh, good avoidance there, but just dipping his wheel into the gravel. And, well, as they head now through the kink and into turn 2, well, taking advantage of that. Because that just upsets the car for a moment, doesn't it? And that can make all the difference, Tony.
Yeah, that was some close battle. Nice overtaking to last turn. Then the overtaking driver went wide all the way to the gravel, had a bad exit from the last turn, which opened up the driver to retake his place, and that's why we see this battle to continue. And so far, it's been good, but the car is a little bit all over the place. Car 121 Carroll is been really active to overtake the driver in front of him.
Paul Lynn then, who is being chased at the moment by Roy Carroll, and that is quite an epic battle that is going on. And do bear in mind that is for P3 in the Coppa Shell Am class. Eric Marston, meantime, is going to get that flag, which indicates that he's about to start the final lap, and he's increased his margin by another 0.8, which is good driving from Eric Marston. Good job being done indeed. And Robert McWilliams P2, Jan Bernier P3, then it's Chuck Whittle and Lisa Clark, and then for the Am drivers it's Roger Monteforte from Brian Waltersdorf and Paul Lynn continuing to hold off Roy Carroll and Dana Goodwin. And here you can see Paul Lynn through the kink heading into the hairpin turn then. Oh, and that's a bold move up the inside on the Roy Carroll car, but and that is really, really unfortunate because just unsettled the back end of the car. I was going to say it was a big save, and actually eventually it was a big save for Roy Carroll, holding on to that car when, had it been anyone less talented or experienced.
Yeah, it starts with the overtaking, really late dive from 188, which upsets Carroll's car racing line. Then there's another car inside. He goes wide, and again, dropping that wheel, and then the pendulum effect. He didn't control the car, and that's why he spun.
The second car in that overtake was Jeffrey Nunberg, who, of course, has made great strides since the start of the race. But here is the checkered flag for Eric Marston. He put the car on pole position, and he converts that pole position into the race win for the Ferrari of Westlake driver. Well done, Eric Marston. Robert McWilliams, P2. Jan Bernier, P3. And all heck was breaking out behind us. In the meantime, let's pick up on Roger Monteforte here in the 101 car, driving for the Ferrari of Central New Jersey team as he heads towards the checkered flag and takes it to win the Coppa Shell Am race ahead of Brian Waltersdorf and Paul Lynn. Did hold on from Dana Goodwin and Jeffrey Nunberg. And yes, a Coppa Shell race then. And both the Coppa Shell drivers and Shell Am drivers then, of course, with a safety car, full course yellow in the middle of the race and occupying quite some time in the race to recover those stricken cars of Osvaldo Gallo and Mitchell Green. Both of the drivers are perfectly okay. And there we have it, 30 minutes plus one lap of racing, which has seen victory for the driver of car number 126. And there you can see all of Eric Marston's emotions. We're filming that almost live in the car. I mean, that's how we'll be feeling, isn't it, Tony?
Yeah, great performance from Eric. A lot of work behind this success. A lot of planning, a lot of training, a lot of coaching to be able to receive the messages and indications in this occasion from Balzan and then deliver on track. It takes time, and today was the right moment and great drive from qualifying. Not easy this morning, cold track. Raining down, difficult conditions to handle, and then I would say masterpiece driving, because the main start he took it really well. The restart after safety car, McWilliams was closer than ever, but you could see that Eric was really confident on his pace, that once everything is settled down after the start or restart, picking up his own pace, he can pull away from the others.
Great job done by Eric Marston. Well done indeed. Thank you, Tony. And here is confirmation of the result then. Eric Marston taking the win from Robert McWilliams and Jan Bernier. It's Chuck Whittle and Lisa Clark, P4 and P5. Best of the AM drivers, Roger Monteforte, victorious ahead of Brian Waltersdorf and Paul Lynn, P6, 7 and 8 overall. We'll bring you the rest of the order. It's Dana Goodwin, P9. Then it was Jeffrey Nunberg, Steve Check and Jerry Walters. Ahead of Bruce Cleveland, Roy Carroll and David Williams. They occupy the positions down to 15, ahead of Hal Heggie, John Visca, Helen Shue, Osvaldo Gallo, Mitchell Green. Unfortunately, we lost, and DNS non-starters from Tal Al-Sher and Darren Bernstein. That's the way it looked, and well done to all the drivers out there. Cyril Choksi, of course, also won, not able to take the start due to an off in qualifying, which is a great shame. So, Coppa Shell race full of drama, full of joy for this man. Alessandro Balzan then coaching Eric Marston. Alessandro will be one of the first to go and congratulate him, I'm sure. And he can take his laundry basket elsewhere now, because sure as heck Eric ain't going to be doing it, because he's done exactly as was requested of him, and he's been victorious. Eric, another driver that has driven in the European series of Ferrari Challenge as well, but at home here in North America, he's made it count. I think the new aerodynamic hairstyle may have had something to do with that. And there he's congratulated. And I'm just waiting to see. Here comes Balzan running in to congratulate him. Alessandro Balzan then does congratulate him. And he's done a very, very good job. I mean, Alessandro's a great guy. Louis Colmash, head of the Ferrari Challenge in North America, also making congratulations there to Eric Marston. He'll be thrilled with that, and deservedly so. I had lunch with him yesterday, and he's always good fun to talk to, and he'll be thrilled with that. And Shay has got him right now. Congratulations, Eric.
Congratulations from all of us, Eric. How good does it feel to be a race winner in Ferrari Challenge?
Amazing. Feels so amazing. Amazing to win here. Amazing to win in this car. Yeah, awesome.
Felt like you had control of the race the whole time. From the outside, did it feel that way from your perspective?
I mean, I just was doing my thing, hitting my lines, hitting my points. Wasn't worried about what was happening behind me. But yeah, it felt really good.
Big win, but also big day for the championship. You thinking long term?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I know Chachki couldn't start today, so yeah, definitely big for the championship for me.
Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
Well done, Eric Marston. What a star you are.
Congrats.
Thrilled for him. He absolutely is so passionate about Ferrari and his racing in the challenge as well. So richly deserved victory, and well done to him. And in the Drivers' Championship, Eric Marston then now leads it ahead of Jan Bernier and Robert McWilliams. They are the 1, 2, 3 in the Drivers' Championship, ahead of Chuck Whittle, John Viscop, Lisa Clark, Osvaldo Gallo and Cyril Choksi. You just miss a race and it makes such a difference into the points, doesn't it? And, got to think of the long game. So Cyril will be very, very conscious of that. It's Bruce Cleveland, P9 in the championship. Then it's Mitchell Green, Ray Acosta and Mike Luley. Then they are P10, 11 and 12 in the Shell Drivers' Championship. Of course, we will bring you the updated Shell AM championship points as well, so you can keep an eye on those. But Roger Monteforte then sealing the deal in that race. He takes the win, and let's hear from him now. He's with Shea.
Not his first win, but first win of the year for Roger Monteforte. How good does it feel to be a race winner once again?
Feels great. This track was challenging. It was actually my first time at this track. I didn't get to practice for the first 2 days, so I kind of got thrown right into the deep end. But once I got acclimated, I just love it. It's one of my favorites now.
What's your favorite part of the track?
Oh, probably turn 6 I love, and the corkscrew. Those two are just epic.
Little party tonight before getting back in the car tomorrow?
I've been a good boy so far, so maybe just a little. Yeah.
Congratulations.
Awesome. Thank you.
Well done, Roger. I've been a good boy, he says, so not going to party too hard. Got another race to come tomorrow, of course, as he's congratulated by Louis Colmash down there. And that is great to see. Right, in the Shell Am Drivers' Championship, Brian Waltersdorf still leading, but crucially, Roger Monteforte checks him to 2 points now with Steve Check P3. Then it's Dana Goodwin, Jeffrey Nunberg, Paul Lynn, Roy Carroll and Jerry Walters occupying the remaining 8 positions in the Drivers' Championship on that page. And we'll cross to the next page as well to see who's doing from P9 downwards. Of course, think of the long game, the championship points. It's David Williams, P9, ahead of Al Heggie. Tal El-Sher, then it's Helen Shu. Darren Bernstein, Neil Langberg, missing this weekend, and Gabe Harib running P14 and 15, respectively, for those two drivers in the Shell Am Drivers' Championship. Very well populated and very competitive out there on track. That's a brilliant sight outside the lovely hospitality area here. And Jeffrey Nunberg, I have to say, Tony, he was really impressive in the race. You agree?
Yeah, I think he started dead last.
He
started last, and he finished 5th in the class in the Shell Am, and he had the fastest lap of the Shell Am drivers. I talked with him the other day. He said, I've been struggling a bit with this track. It takes so much commitment, and these corners are not easy, but I will get there, don't worry. And he went for another round of pasta. So maybe it was the pasta that delivered today. But excellent drive.
Well, whether it was the pasta, the threat of a driver coach's laundry or whatever. Thanks for watching the Shell race from Ferrari Challenge North America. We still have one more race to come, of course, but thank you so much for watching. Please join us once again. Bye-bye for now.